She ain't no diva. Yo no so Drag Race, baby. How was my accent? Hi, my name is Matthew, and you might know me as BLACKBoy on TikTok. It's BLACKBoy on Twitter, BLACK_Matt_ on Instagram, or you might not know me at all. And for those of you who don't, I am a content creator that talks all things World of Wonder and Drag Race, especially that of Drag Race outside of the US. And today, for my 9th video ever, the time has finally arrived. We are talking about the long-awaited, the illustrious, and some ways elusive Drag Race Brasil Season 1. On December 12th, 2022, Paramount Plus Brazil officially confirmed that this edition of Drag Race Brasil was on its way, after World of Wonder teased the series with those mysterious casting calls that they posted in August that same year. I've mentioned these posts before on my channel about 10,000 times, so there's really no need to dive into them. If you want more information, feel free to watch my videos on Drag Race Mexico and Drag Race Sverige. Some might argue that the Drag Race Brasil announcement was far too late coming, but still the overall sentiment of the fandom was vigorous, was ecstatic. It appeared that finally a franchise that previously seemed to be left in the dust by World of Wonder was finally getting the time of day. Well, left in the dust is not entirely true. I like to throw a lot of blame at World of Wonder for a plethora of things, but Brazil's tardiness is mostly out of their hands. While drafting this video, I found that one cannot talk about Drag Race Brasil as a season or a franchise without discussing the long, arduous, uphill battle it took to be made. Fun fact, in August 2017, Endemol Shine Brasil, in association with Passion Distribution, acquired the rights to produce Drag Race Brasil. Interestingly, Endemol Shine Brasil also falls under the same parent company that produces Drag Race France, just as an aside. But yeah, did you notice that's why I specifically said this edition of Drag Race Brasil at the beginning of this video? This is why. So August 2017... Eat your food, girl. So August 2017 is where we see this timeline begin. If you Drag Race Nancy Drews have your calendars out, then you might notice that yes, this was before Drag Race Thailand, the very first international franchise, was released. But considering that Drag Race Brasil's announcement itself was in August 2017 and Drag Race Thailand's release was in February 2018, I'm not sure if there could have been a way for Drag Race Brasil to like speed up pre-production in order to beat Drag Race Thailand to the punch, but that's neither here nor there because it didn't happen. Nonetheless, in 2017/2018, the rumors about Drag Race Brasil spread like wildfire. Talks about RuPaul possibly appearing as a guest judge, speculation about who the host could be. In these early days, there were many fans that were talking about the plethora of different possibilities that might come from this franchise. However, during this time, the country of Brazil saw the rise of far-right politician Jair Bolsonaro. And with him, a wave of conservatism swept through the country. Bolsonaro was notoriously anti-LGBT, from the genesis of his career all the way up through his borderline extremist presidency.
Nem pai, nem você, nem eu tenho orgulho de ter filho gay. His
supporters, largely conservative evangelicals, adhered to his ideals. And during his time as president, the country saw a widespread spike in anti-LGBTQ+ rhetoric, such as Bolsonaro's Minister of Human Rights and Citizenship, a title which at the time was known as the Minister of Women, Family, and Human Rights, declaring on her first day in office that boys wear blue and girls wear pink.
Sem dizer que menino veste azul, que menina veste rosa.
Many anti-LGBTQ+ bills were introduced during Bolsonaro's time in office, which luckily never passed. But the point is, the far-right evangelical mobilization behind these bills seemed to be more fervent than ever in recent memory. And this, of course, filtered into pop culture, which we see directly affect Drag Race Brasil. In 2018, we officially see Endemol Shine Brasil postpone the production for Drag Race Brasil, of which they credited the reasoning to be because of Passion Distribution reorganizing their strategy. But the general consensus is that they postponed the production of the franchise because of the polarizing political climate at the time. And then in 2020, the production company officially canceled Drag Race Brasil. For 2 years, we experienced a brief lull in talk about Drag Race Brasil until World of Wonder posted those teasers in 2020, right around when Bolsonaro was out of office. In the meantime, there were a couple of drag-based Brazilian reality competition shows, such as Queen Stars Brazil and Caravanas das Drags. The latter of which was probably the most quote-unquote successful of this genre, but it was certainly no Drag Race. So for those of you who may or may not be mapping out your timeline, this makes Drag Race Brasil a whole 6 years in the making, which is probably one of the most long-winded and burdensome journeys that a Drag Race franchise has gone on. If you want more information regarding this journey, I recommend you look at this article from Out Magazine by Bernardo Sim, which gives us a very comprehensive and exhaustive look at all the trials and tribulations that Drag Race Brasil faced. I myself used it as a sort of supplemental reference while I was doing my own research for this video. It's very informative, I recommend checking it out. But despite all opposition, finally, in August 2023, the very first season of Drag Race Brasil hit MTV and Paramount Plus. And of course WoW Presents Plus for those of us outside of Brazil. However, the lead up to the season flagged some concern. At least for me it did, because the promotion for Drag Race Brasil was almost an exact photo copy of the promotional material that MTV and Paramount Plus dropped for Drag Race Mexico. This includes the teaser trailers, the layout of the promo photos, etc. Keep in mind that the Drag Race Brasil cast dropped on August 2nd of 2023, which fell right around the 8-episode mark of Drag Race Mexico, which was well past the stage where fans were starting to get fed up with how the latter season was turning out. So seeing the publicity of Drag Race Brasil almost imitate a less than popular season, some red flags might have been raised. And I suppose it's not the marketing at its core level that causes this apprehension, but rather the marketing is a conduit through which we are reminded that the two seasons are being produced by the same production companies. And to build upon that, Drag Race Brasil is airing so soon after Drag Race Mexico that we have to worry that the production company might have not given themselves enough time to hear the criticisms of Drag Race Mexico, internalize them, and apply them to Drag Race Brasil. So it's understandable that some people being me, went into the season with a certain apprehension because our best reference of how it was going to turn out was Drag Race Mexico. In fact, I even remember while Drag Race Mexico was airing, I heard that Drag Race Brasil got quietly postponed in order to be re-edited after the negative backlash of Drag Race Mexico. Again, this is just like hearsay, please don't take it as fact. But when the premiere finally dropped on streaming, we all finally tuned in and we were all pleasantly whelmed. No, okay, I'm kidding. Though the premiere itself wasn't necessarily bad, it was just a little bit forgettable. I think part of that is because there wasn't a lip sync, which upon recent years, I've really started to realize that really ties together an episode. Is the reason why the Drag Race Vadia finale was kind of like a wah-wah, because like, where was the lip sync? So the absence of one here in the very first episode of Drag Race Brasil kind of messed with the vibe, to be honest. But that's neither here nor there. Come to find out, the lip syncs aren't really going to be anything to look forward to. Okay, no, foreshadowing. I'll get to that later. It all started coming together in the second premiere, however, when all the girls finally got a chance to be together and interact with one another. Because keep in mind, this was a double premiere, the second international franchise to have one. I think that this cast had a very specific understanding that this was the very first season of Drag Race Brasil, and they were the very first cast of this franchise. And truly, I think that really augmented the chemistry of these 12 queens. Sort of like a solidarity that they had with each other. And this is the case with a lot of franchises in their very first season, like, don't get me wrong, where all the queens exclaim, "Give it up for the first season of Drag Race X Country!" It's incredibly fun and adorable every time, but there was something particularly intoxicating about this reaction from the Brasil cast. And in my opinion, it really is because of that 6-year production hell that the franchise faced. After the constant tribulations it took to be made, there's no surprise that the cast felt an extreme sense of pride in being the very first of this franchise, because in some ways, the very existence of this season is a grandiose dissent against the far-right politics that had plagued Brazil in the years before its production. And the queens knew that, and they filtered it into their time on the show. Most of all, the host, Drag Queen. Drag Queen took every opportunity she could to talk about the importance of Drag Race Brasil.
É uma plataforma que vai impulsionar muita carreira de muita queen, principalmente as queens brasileiras que sempre foram as maiores e elas só precisavam de uma oportunidade.
Also, while we're on the topic, can we talk about how amazing of a host Drag Queen is? When she was announced as the host, it made perfect sense, right? Drag Queen is probably one of the most prolific Brazilian drag artists ever, especially after having reinforced her resume by competing on and winning Queen of the Universe. This also made her casting as the host an incredibly smart move because it does attract a lot of attention to the franchise for those of us outside of Brazil. I'm not saying that like Queen of the Universe was like some huge network success, mind you, but I am saying that it definitely put Drag Queen on a lot of people's radars where she normally wouldn't have been otherwise. As a presenter, I found her particularly endearing and vibrant. At some points, her criticisms and her presentations were a little bit robotic and scripted, but nothing that took away from her chops as a host or that can't be ironed out in future seasons. Here, we see a queen that is not only happy to be there, but ready to be there. Ready to undertake the soon-to-come legacy of Drag Race Brasil. This is very clearly filtered into how she treats the queens of her season, taking every opportunity to highlight the talent of the cast and to remind them of it.
Primeiramente, parabéns pra vocês. Vocês, no meio de Brasilzão inteiro que ama drag, que tem fome de drag, vocês foram escolhidas pioneiras da primeira temporada do Drag Race Brasil.
And it really is a talented cast. The initial season of Drag Race Brasil consisted of 12 queens. Diva Moore, Tristan Soledade, Melazini Sparkle, Aquarella, The Congeniality, Ruby Ocean, Dallas DeVille, Naza, Shannon Skarllet, Miranda Lebrão, Betina Polaroid, Hellena Malditta, and, of course, the winner, Organzza. Also, just as an aside, Portuguese, I'm not well acquainted with it, and one thing that I've noticed for myself as a native English speaker is that in Portuguese, I really struggle to remember how D's and T's are pronounced. So I apologize if I butchered any of their names, but I think I got it. I think I did. I don't know about you guys, but for me, I see a star-studded cast that is home to many all-timers. Aquarella, Dallas, Betina, Organzza, all of whom have become some of my favorites of 2023. But of course, that doesn't limit the X factor of the rest of the cast. And on top of that, it doesn't undermine the overall talent of other seasons or casts. But I don't know, I found this cast so enticing and captivating. One of the key areas for me, at least, was the runway. I'm a big runway girly. It's my favorite part of every episode, and that's why I love a design challenge. But the runway here every single week brought a certain level of pristine creativity, resourcefulness that I always looked forward to. Even in a situation where a challenge might have not been all that, you could always rely on the runway to sort of rebound the episode. From the early outs to the top 4, everyone brought their A game to the runway. I always think back to episode 8, Extravagância das Festas Brasileiras, essentially like the quote-unquote ball. And I say quote unquote because like the archetypal Drag Race ball usually consists of like a workroom designed look, but this episode didn't have that. But they still showed 3 looks, whatever. Anyways, this is one of the best examples of Drag Race Brasil's runway collection. One thing that I can say as an ignorant American is that I'm not that familiar with the festivals or customs that this episode was inspired by, and that being the Maracatu,
Festival de Parintins,
Parintins, Bate-Bola. Oh, can you hear me? Hi. Oh my god, I'm sure I'm really like butchering these pronunciations. But that aside, I absolutely 100% admire the results they effectuated on this show. Because just look at the caliber of fashion that the top 6 brought to this challenge. Truly spectacular and honestly a moment in Drag Race history. At least to me it is. Now, of course, this season does have its drawbacks. For example, I wouldn't call it a very lip sync heavy season, let's say. Don't go into Drag Race Brasil Season 1 thinking you are going to be jaw-dropped, finger-snapped, gagged over any of the lip syncs. I'm not saying that I can do any better than these queens, mind you, but I am saying as a viewer, there weren't really any moments from like the, 10 lip syncs this season that I can remember? Except maybe Aquarella falling on the floor. That was too good. Even the double Shantae that happened in episode 9 between Shannon and Organzza was like yeah, sure, I guess. I mean, okay, I think like thematically it made perfect sense because the relationship between Organzza and Shannon had been established straight from the get-go.
Pessoalmente, eu conhecia a Shannon Skarllet. A gente já participou dos mesmos concursos e a gente já venceu os mesmos concursos.
By the way, according to Drag Race Wiki, According to the Drag Race Wiki, Organzza is apparently Shannon's drag mother, which I was not aware of until I started doing research on this video. Like, I don't remember them bringing it up in the show at all, but whatever. Either way, they have a relationship. So them not only being in the bottom two together, but also being saved together is a cathartic beat in their friendly rival storyline. And that, of course, is a Drag Race staple. But the overall lip sync was like, yeah, good. I think both queens did well enough to like individually warrant a Shantae You Stay, but in comparison to like legendary double Shantaes such as Alyssa versus Tatiana, Angela and Kana, Brooklyn and Evie, this one was lower in the ranking. In fact, some fans think that Shannon won this lip sync fair and square, but the double Shantae was used as a bid to save Organzza. Yeah, I think it is as good a time as any to talk about the alleged favoritism of Organzza. So we have some really big fish to fry. Based in Rio de Janeiro, Organzza started her drag career in 2018 when she competed in a drag competition known as Queens o Concurso, which she notably won. And interestingly, at the time, she still spelled her name with only one Z. Not important, I just thought that was interesting. She went on to win another notorious drag competition known as the Queens Brasil as little as 1 year later. Amongst other titles, of course, por ejemplo, the second season of a web-based drag reality competition known as TNT Drag in 2021 and Drag Star in 2022. So she went into Drag Race Brasil immediately decorated with notable titles across her pocket flap, establishing herself as one of the biggest up-and-coming names on the scene. And those titles were sort of validated, and rightfully so, when Organzza kicked off the season by winning 2 challenges right off the bat. That's right, she is one of the few illustrious queens that won the first 2 competitive episodes back-to-back. And admittedly, this was the catalyst for a lot of people to accuse Drag Race Brasil of picking its winner straight from the jump, and immediately started drawing comparisons to that of Christian Peralta on Drag Race Mexico. There was an IMDb review that I saw that said, hold on, let me pull out my laptop. Hey, Venus Raja, hold on, you can't see it. Hey, Venus Raja and Paolo. So the IMDb review said, it is more than obvious the winner was decided since the beginning. This is disrespectful to the other queens since they were clearly better. First off, the "they were clearly better" comment was unnecessary and carries a lot of baggage. We are not here to diminish the talents of some queens over any others, so check yourself. Second off, I am reminded of the words of my favorite YouTuber, Jenny Nicholson. This is an unfair assessment, a bad take, I guess you could call it. Now, in the sake of fairness, there are some signs there that I can understand how they might be misconstrued in order to support this line of thinking.
Se você já se amou hoje, eu não sei, mas eu te amo muito, desde a hora que você entrou.
But I can't look at Organzza's run on the show and say that how she was treated was as preposterous as how Christian was treated. You know, there were a couple placements here and there that I might have disagreed with. Like, I might have given her one less high placement, and I might have given the makeover win to Hellena, but those sort of like small 1 or 2 disagreements, I have those with like every Drag Race winner. Every critique that Organzza got, I thought was warranted. Now, keep in mind here that I don't speak a lick of Portuguese, as I've established throughout this video, so I did have to rely on World of Wonder's English captions, which did honestly sometimes feel like they were auto-generated. My point being, there might be some nuances here and there during deliberations, during challenges, etc., that I might have missed due to the language barrier. But overall, what I gleaned from watching the show honestly felt pretty natural. And the difference here between the favoritism of Drag Race Mexico and what happened in Drag Race Brasil lies within how the rest of the cast was treated in relation to the winner. I explained it before in my video about Drag Race Mexico, so go give that a watch when you have time. That is the second time I think I've plugged that video today. But the overall flyover is that the producers and the judges were so dead set on having Christian as their winner that they pushed everybody else off to the wayside just to make sure that their one pick would become a reality. So that includes queens whose storylines are left unfulfilled, that includes queens being snubbed of challenge wins, and that includes queens getting negative critiques for something that Christian might have gotten positive critiques for. But yeah, sure, we would have queens like Matraka who would prove themselves a threat by winning 3 challenges, but in the same episodes that Matraka would win a challenge, Christian would infamously be saved from being in the bottom. Point being, they didn't give the time of day to any of the other contestants because all their time was simply devoted to Christian and her sole storyline. This is not the case with Drag Race Brasil. Drag Race Brasil did a pretty good job at making the time to focus on the successes and stories of other primary players in the season besides Organzza. The top 6 in particular all truly get their time in the sun. They got their flowers from the judges as it was warranted, and there wasn't some big Organzza cloud that overshadowed it like some people think there was, especially not to the degree that Christian Peralta did. I think the most potent example that highlights this is the icon and legend Betina Polaroid, who had one of the best arcs in the entire show. Dare I say, even a better story arc than that of Organzza. Starting off the season by lip-syncing for her life, it didn't seem like Betina would last that much longer. But as we progressed, we watched Betina experience moments of vulnerability with her castmates and the judges. And then we got to experience an amazing comeback of successes in the challenges. Genuinely one of the most impressive comebacks we've ever seen because it truly was a steady climb to the top for her. But most importantly, in other certain franchises, that might have been brushed aside and treated as whatever, but here, rather, they chose to celebrate it.
Você é reflexo do Brasil que é a gente se fode, mas a gente levanta e a gente dá a volta por cima e a gente se diverte. E você tem muito prazer de estar aqui, então...
Betina Polaroid, que curva de evolução linda. Você me inspira demais.
It's moments like this, where Betina, in tandem with her exemplary and evolutionary track record and on-screen storyline, seemed to have a real chance at the crown, which is mainly thanks to production giving her the time that she deserves as a drag artist. Now, Betina wasn't the only threat to Organzza's crown. Miranda had an interesting storyline to her first badge, and Hellena was undoubtedly one of, if not Organzza's biggest competition. But I am saying that Betina is the most clear-cut example of Drag Race Brasil taking the time to propel a multitude of its cast rather than one single contestant, a la Drag Race Mexico style. But Organzza's ferocity specifically as a competitor was truly one that would have proven difficult for anyone to overcome, especially with a track record like hers that reflected those talents, even with the stipulations that I mentioned earlier. I think there is a common misconception in the Drag Race fandom that frontrunner automatically equates to favoritism, and that is simply not the case. Favoritism isn't just one sole entity. It is a concoction of many different ingredients that conjures up this idea that we call favoritism. That misconception plagued people's perception of Organzza, exponentially so when she won the first 2 mini challenges, no less, which effectively ruffled a lot of feathers. Amongst other things, of course, we can sit here and discuss how the fandom has notoriously and disproportionately mistreated black queens that have been on the show before, and we could dissect the anti-blackness in the community, but we are all adults here, and we can understand our behavior. I'm not going to spoon feed to you why racism is wrong. Perceptions aside, Organzza is undoubtedly a superstar from this cast, and her trajectory to the crown was justified, and no, I will not be taking any criticisms on either of those points. Her talent, art, and enthusiasm for drag shine through on this season. She truly came in with one of the biggest packages from this entire cast, and one of the most endearing things I've noticed since her crowning is that she has become an even more active member in her community than she was before. She uses her platform to advocate for the impoverished of Rio de Janeiro. She highlights the hardships of those in her chosen family. Just a few days prior to filming this video, a neighborhood that Organzza grew up in flooded after facing heavy rains, devastating many homes and businesses in the community and killing at least 12 people. Organzza quickly took to her socials to bring attention to the tragedy and how her fanbase can support. Although I wasn't able to find a way for us outside of Brazil to help, Organzza included that the parish that is spearheading the relief efforts is accepting donations for supplies through Pix. And for those of you who don't know, Pix is a Brazilian instant payment system, and they should still be accepting donations to this day. So if any of you that are watching this video right now live in Brazil and want to help where you can, I will include the Pix information in the description below. My point here in bringing this up is that Organzza's win here isn't going to waste. She is establishing herself as a pillar in her local community, and I find that to be one of the most powerful things you can do as a Drag Race winner. Genuinely one of my favorite crowned queens of 2023. If I had to sum up my experience when watching Drag Race Brasil, I would say it gets a bad rap. Do I think it's the best season ever? No. It has its flaws. The lip syncs, unfortunately, aren't memorable. Some queens get unnecessarily harsh critiques. Dallas DeVille. Oh, gosh, I don't know. Something got stuck in my throat there. Oh, and the finale has 3 runner-ups. Okay, that is not a problem specifically for Drag Race Brazil, but let me take this opportunity to tell any season of Drag Race going forward. Please, 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 please never, 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 ever have 3 runner-ups. I'm sorry, I had to say it. You can have 4 queens in a finale, sure, but you gotta cut at least one of them before lip-syncing for the crown. And I'm looking at you too, Drag Race Mexico, All-Star 6, and some other seasons I'm sure I can't remember at the moment. It really isn't a huge issue, it's just what I would do as a producer of Drag Race, but I don't know, that's just me. But for every drawback, there was seemingly double the qualities that made this season a fun watch. Again, I bring attention to the runways. Again, I bring attention to the chemistry of the queens. I don't even think I mentioned the drama yet. Though it's not the most dramatic season ever, there's still some juicy fights in there. Like the fight between Organzza, Shannon, and Melazini in episode 3. Oh, it's so good.
Não
faz isso, porque você tá me colocando nesse lugar de novo. Que eu estava tentando diminuir o trabalho de uma outra pessoa. E não é isso, porque uma estrela pra brilhar, eu não tava pisando em ninguém.
One of my favorites. And I didn't even get a chance to talk about episode 5, Glamazonia. This was probably one of the best Drag Race episodes of 2023. I'm not even going to call it my favorite because this is like an objective fact. So if I recommend you watch any episode from this season of Drag Race Brazil, it would be episode 5. Basically, there's a lot of potential here. And with some fine-tuning, Drag Race Brazil can become one of the most appreciated franchises of Drag Race ever. As of filming this video, January 2024, Season 2 still hasn't been confirmed. At least not to my knowledge, I haven't seen any open casting calls for Season 2 or anything yet. Although I think someone online mentioned that they might be doing a private casting where they're only going to do offer only. But that just sounds like hearsay, so don't take it from me. But even though we haven't heard any word from Drag Race Brazil Season 2, I'm pretty confident we'll be getting it, especially after franchises like Global All-Stars or Versus the World start to platform Brazilian drag artists to a global audience, which will undoubtedly mobilize the franchise's continuation. I mean, look at Pangina Heels. Her being the greatest success story from UK Versus the World Season 1 single-handedly greenlit Drag Race Thailand for Season 3 after a 5-year hiatus. So seeing these undoubtedly talented and uniquely fierce Brazilian drag artists on a worldwide stage will surely have a similar effect. But yeah, those are my exhaustively long thoughts about Drag Race Brazil Season 1. Though a controversial season, I do hope we take the time to celebrate Brazilian drag and these artists that chose to share their art with us, especially after the 6 years of tribulations that it took to be produced. So to the cast and production team of Drag Race Brazil Season 1, thank you. But I'm curious to know what your guys' thoughts are. Did you enjoy the season? Did you not enjoy the season? Feel free to comment your respectful answer down below. And while you're down there, why don't you consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel? I have some fun videos on the way, so I hope you can join me for those in the future because we have a really good time here. And yes, I know I do take forever to post videos on YouTube, but I am trying my best to get on a better schedule. So you'll hopefully see me a lot more often. But nonetheless, please remember, I am just a gay person talking on the internet.